Herb Caen, an American journalist, once wrote that a city shouldn't be gauged by its length and width, but rather by the broadness of its vision and the height of its dreams. And if that's true, then this city should be considered one of the greatest in our country. Located in the Lubelskie Voivodeship and established in 1580 by one of the most influential people in the 16th century Poland, it is very often called a perfect city, the pearl of Renaissance. So, where am I?
The city of Zamos is still till today called an ideal city, an exceptional city. Its architecture is beautiful. It offers a perfect harmony between architecture and the human being who was meant to live here. Because in Renaissance, an ideal city is one tailored to human needs.
It is impossible to talk about Zamość without mentioning two people. Zamoyski and Bernardo Morando.
One day, on an empty green meadow, two men stood together, Zamoyski and Bernardo Morando, and joined their ideas and skills to create this ideal Renaissance city. The city is oriented east-west, north-south, but with a slight rotation of a few degrees so that the air circulates well. And indeed, even during heat waves in Zamość, there's always at least a light breeze, a gentle wind. We have beautiful buildings, defensive walls, that provided safety for residents, and Zamość is known as a fortress that was never taken by storm by foreign armies. So we have here everything that was needed for the city to be truly exceptional.
Bernardo Morando must have been a true Renaissance man, because not only was he an architect of Zamość, but he was also a contractor. So he designed and built this city. Well, I haven't designed anything, but I bet that it must have been quite difficult to create a city that was meant to last for centuries. What made it a tailor-made city?
Zamoyski was a man who always planned everything carefully. He always acted with great vision. Initially, his plan was to only build a noble residence, but later he realized that a residence can easily be destroyed. While a city is much harder to erase from the face of the earth, the fact that the city is so beautifully designed comes largely from its chessboard-like street layout, very precisely planned, with the Great Market Square serving a representative function, and the smaller auxiliary squares like the Salt Market and Water Market. Everything here fits together perfectly, and that too contributed to the city's uniqueness.
Those two gentlemen signed the deal on the 1st of July 1578, but the city was established 2 years later. How did the work progress here?
They began, of course, with the construction of the palace. Another very important building was the cathedral, then still a collegiate church. Though interestingly, Zamoyski wanted to move the bishopric from Helm here, but the Bishop of Helm strongly opposed this idea. In the original plan, the city wasn't built of brick. Zamoyski and Morando wanted to give the plan some time to settle, to see if it would all work. So during the first decade, they built in wood. Once they confirmed that everything functioned as intended, they began building with brick and stone. And another interesting thing, Zamoyski was so meticulous and eager to complete the city quickly that if someone was slacking off with construction, he could take back the plot he had sold and give it to someone who would build faster.
Zamoyski was a very educated man as he studied abroad, for example in Italian Padua. He was very impressed by the city and he would very often repeat with pride, "Patavium me virum fecit," which in Latin means "Padua made me a man." thus emphasizing the importance of education. When he came back to Poland, he put this knowledge to use and he made Zamość Padua of the North. The city worked and it still does work. For example, we are looking at this place from a balcony of a city hall, and the city hall came to existence in 1591.
The town hall, the seat of the city council and the mayor, was also funded by Jan Zamoyski. But the building changed over time, and this is perhaps the best example of how cities evolve, which is perfectly natural. Now, if we look down, we see the beautiful fan-shaped stairs that are the town hall's hallmark. But they didn't exist in Zamoyski's time. They were added later in the Baroque period. So one might ask, is this still a Renaissance city? But that's precisely the point. It still functions, even though some elements have changed. The city remains essentially as Morando and Zamoyski planned it. And to this day, the town hall serves the same function. It's still the seat of the city council and now of the president.
To improve is to change. To be perfect is simply to change more often. And from Renaissance through Baroque to modern times, Zamość has been changing a bit in order to remain this ideal city. A man from Poland decided to hire a man from Italy in order to create a little bit of Italy in Poland.
Indeed, people often say that Zamość is the most Italian of Polish cities. And it's true. Even Italians who visit sometimes say, yes, this is like an Italian piazza, when they step into the Great Market Square. It was a wise decision by Zamoyski to hire an Italian architect, since Italy was the cradle of the Renaissance. That's where these ideas were born. That's where people were asking themselves how an ideal city looked like. And Zamość became the answer to that question.
Why do you think UNESCO World Heritage Committee decided to put Zamość on the list?
Jan Zamoyski and Morando based their design on Renaissance treatises that explored how an ideal city should look and function. So they brought theory to life. That's something extraordinary. And that's precisely why Zamość has been on the UNESCO World Heritage list for over 30 years.
How did UNESCO influence Zamość?
We have many more foreign tourists. I think one reason so many, for example, Japanese visitors come to Zamość is that they often plan their trips around UNESCO sites. So people come from distant Japan and other places because this city is a gem worth visiting. Thanks to its UNESCO listing, people know it exists.
What are the most common reactions of tourists visiting?
Wow.
Just one word, so many emotions.
Yes. Tak.
From May till September, exactly at midday, a trumpeter dressed up in gentry clothing sounds a bugle call from the town's hall tower, but surprisingly only towards 3 sides of the world. Why? Well, the legend has it that Jan Zamoyski was conflicted with the townsmen of Krakow and he forbade the bugle call to be directed toward this city. But experts now claim that the bugle call was always meant to be directed toward 3 entry gates of the fortress. As marvelous as Zamość is, it was only a fraction of Jan Zamoyski's properties. When he died in 1605, he left 12 cities and 612 villages to his heir. But besides being wealthy, he was also very tolerant. Even though he was Catholic, he was very open for other nations and religions, which gained him a nickname of a great tolerant. In general, historically, cities are created step by step. And here we have one person who sits down and says, well, I think I'm gonna create a city. What were the biggest issues, problems with this project?
I think the main problem for Zamoyski lay in his initial assumptions, because he decided that Zamość would be a city intended only for Catholic residents. It soon turned out, however, that it was necessary to reach out to foreigners and invite them to settle in Zamość on very favourable terms. At first, he invited Hungarians and Scots, but also Sephardic Jews, those coming from the wealthier regions of Europe. Armenians, of course. They felt very comfortable here, largely because they assimilated quickly. They established manufactories and shops and enjoyed excellent conditions, as they were exempt from paying rent for about 25 years. So they found their place here.
The idea of multicultural cities, which nowadays exist across the globe, was not born yesterday. Zamość is the best proof that even centuries ago it was nearly impossible to create a fully functioning and blooming society with help of only one nation.
This too was cleverly thought out by Zamoyski, because he designated specific areas: an Armenian quarter, a Jewish quarter, thereby creating the idea of an open city.
When we think of people living in a city, the modern residents of Zamość represent something totally different than the townspeople of Zamość in the 16th century.
The burgher class of Zamość was very stratified, as there were highly privileged groups. This was also due to the presence of the Zamość Academy, which meant the city had an entire spectrum of academic teachers, rectors, councillors, and city officials. Meanwhile, the lower classes usually settled outside the fortress walls, which was very disadvantageous for them. So the social structure was quite diverse.
Come to think about it, both and the rich and the poor were important for the city, because the poor might not have built huge houses, but they kept the city living and going.
We can also observe this dynamic in the city's later development. When the Armenians left, Jewish settlers arrived. Of course, various conflicts arose, as is common in any living urban tissue. But this multiculturalism shows that it was possible to reconcile the different expectations of various social groups.
The city kept developing throughout next decades and centuries, because even this building that we are currently in dates back to the 17th century, I believe.
It was also necessary to accept that new eras bring new fashions. At the beginning of the 17th century, when Armenian merchants bought the townhouses, they brought with them designs inspired by the Far East. Thus, in the heart of the historic city, we have 4 beautiful townhouses that, apart from the town hall, are probably the most recognizable architectural symbol of Zamość.
a spark of urban genius which was ignited by one wealthy man, Jan Zamoyski, and executed by a brilliant architect, was later brought to life by thousands of people living in Zamość, selling and buying, producing and using these products, living and dying, and with all these activities making the city flourish. Ready for more UNESCO? Jan Zamoyski was certainly an uncommon figure, an all-powerful chancellor, the first hetman appointed for life, founder of the ideal city, as well as a patron and philanthropist. He didn't only create Zamość, but he also cared about its urban and intellectual development, establishing Akademia Zamojska in 1594, not for his personal gain. So, recognizing his influence, we should always remember his words. Commonwealth will be such as is the education of their youth. Some people are destined for greatness, and Jan Zamoyski, spiritus movens of Zamość, seemed to be such man.
The death of his older brother played a significant role. All the ambitions of the family and of Stanisław Zamoyski, Jan's father, were transferred onto his son. This was evident from the very beginning, especially during his education, when he developed both his character and ambitions that would accompany him throughout his life.
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, and Jan Zamoyski understood that education can be the greatest weapon when you use it to change the world. Being an intellectual, he surrounded himself with intelligent people and cared about education of others. Not only Jan Zamoyski did create an entire city of Zamość, but he also cared about its intellectual growth because he established a university here.
Jan Zamoyski's attempt to reform the Krakow Academy, which he undertook as Chancellor, failed. So he decided to bring his own vision to life. He founded a new institution with the rank of a university, confirmed by privileges granted thanks to his personal efforts to obtain a papal bull from Pope Clement VIII. This placed it on par with other European universities. The academy offered a practical education focused on law, both Roman and national, something entirely unprecedented at the time. Neither the Krakow Academy nor the Vilnius Academy offered such studies. Another important feature, inspired by Western European models, was its printing press. At first, it published works commissioned by Zamoyski himself, since it was his private press. But after his death, it became the Academy's own printing house, one that gained recognition throughout Europe.
Educating young people at the highest level played a crucial role in Zamoyski's attempt to create a civic school, to prepare Polish youth for the future governance of the country. The opening of the academy on the 15th of March 1595 was of historic importance. Alongside Krakow and Vilnius, Akademia Zamojska was the third university in our country, thus gaining Zamość, a name of the Padua of the North. Was building Zamość more about expanding wealth, vanity, or leaving legacy.
The founding of Zamość played an important role as a center, first and foremost, a center of Jan Zamoyski's power over his subjects. But the creation of the city was also meant to serve several specific functions. Above all, it was to be a commercial hub, a center of transit trade. This, of course, had consequences for the growing wealth of Zamość's patriciate and craftsmen. There's no doubt about that. At the same time, Zamość became a symbol of rational management and practical economic strategy in the face of commercial competition. It also served an educational function. The academy was not a one-time experiment, but was meant to exert a lasting influence, particularly across the eastern lands of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. That was Jan Zamoyski's intention, and that of his successors. From today's perspective, Jan Zamoyski was a visionary, an exceptional figure on a European scale. There's no doubt that he was highly skilled in self-promotion. We could say he was an excellent PR man for his time, both in terms of his persona and his achievements. It was a coherent vision, one that he managed to bring to life.
Whether it was a matter of vanity and ego, or a need to leave something for the generations to come, Jan Zamoyski sort of immortalized his surname by encapsulating it in a city that he called nomen omen Zamość. A very smart move, by the way. Because nowadays, even if you don't speak Polish and you learn about Zamość, you immediately associate the name of the city with the name of its founder. Protecting our heritage is protecting our identity, because we are a continuum. So just as we reach back to our ancestors for our fundamental values, later, as guardian of these values, we should reach ahead to our children and their children. Because legacy is not what we're doing for ourselves, it's what we're doing for the next generation. And Zamość is the best example of such way of thinking. Do zobaczenia. Hopefully.